Guess who's back? Back again. Shady's back. Tell a friend.
That was so cheesy. Who am I? And I'm back, finally. I know it's only been like a few weeks, and I only missed like 3 postings, I think. But I live in LA. It's been crazy. It literally felt like Dante's Inferno or hell was approaching. We had fire on all sides of us. I'll show you a map of kind of the general area we are in LA, and you can literally see how surrounded by fires we were. So we were ready to pack and ready to evacuate in case we had to. We had a couple fires that came close to us, and one was like 2 blocks away, but that was a random house fire, of course, that popped up like in the middle of all the other fires that only took 2 houses down, like the main house that burned, that caught fire from the inside, I guess, and then the house next to it. So luckily that one didn't spread, but we were like glued to the TV. We kept the news on, and I never watched the news. We kept the news on all night, muted, just in case. We would set alarms every 2 hours just in case some random fire popped up and we'd have to leave. But luckily we did not have to evacuate. A lot of our friends and family did unfortunately have to evacuate. Luckily, because we had friends and family that were very, very close to the fire lines, and a lot of houses around them burned down, and they were very lucky that their houses were saved. Though the state of those houses, I'm not entirely sure yet. There's definitely soot everywhere, ashes, like it's gonna be a while until they can actually move back in. But we are very lucky. A lot of people in LA were not very lucky, and everyone knows someone. I know people, a lot of my mom's friends lost their houses. Anyone and everyone in LA knows at least someone in some way that has lost their house, which I think is insane to me, because I grew up with fires. I mean, I'm from LA, I grew up in LA, but I've never seen the damage that this did, and it was mainly because of the wind. And when the fire started, helicopters weren't allowed to dump water because it was so windy, and they couldn't send air support out, so it just spread like crazy and yeah, devastated so many people's lives. So it was a rough week. Luckily, it only lasted that long. Like, the fires are still technically burning, but they're very much contained, and I don't think any structures are in danger at the moment, but everyone is trying to figure out how to restart their lives. There's been a lot of support with people volunteering, donating, and everything, but so many people have lost their homes that can't afford to rebuild or buy another thing. The rental market is insane because everyone's trying to find somewhere to live for now. And yeah, things are just kind of apocalyptic in LA right now, and it's crazy, but I feel like things will be okay eventually. And yeah, we're doing our best to support where we can. So getting that update out of the way, that's why I've kind of been MIA for the past 2 weeks, was dealing with the fires and then just a lot of wedding planning stuff in general. I was like, to cope with the fires, I was planning. Like, that's all I did, because no one really was working because everyone was affected by the fires. Like, my office is very close to where the Palisades fire was, so no one was really doing much work that week, so we kind of had an extended break. But that being said, everyone was like glued to their TVs to make sure they didn't have to evacuate. We have like an app we were following. So I went to crazy mode to plan my wedding, which is very far from now, but we did book our venue, so that's why I started kind of planning like crazy. But we booked our venue in Julian, California, which is a really cute mountain town near San Diego. We're very excited. And then one last life update that is book related. I started a book club with my IRL friends, and shout out to Carly and Val if you're watching this. We are excited to have our first book club meeting early February. The first book we're reading I will talk about in my February TBR, so stay tuned for that. But I'm very excited for that as well. So that wraps up my little LA Fires update, life update, all that good stuff. But I am so very excited for what we are here today to talk about, which is the 25 books that I would like to read in 2025. I have been so excited to finally get to do this. I've never done like a how many books to read and what the year is. I didn't do 24 books to read in 2024 because I wasn't on booktube yet, or I didn't do it on my personal Instagram. So I'm very excited because I have a great list for you guys broken down into different categories. But there are a few rules I gave myself for this list, so I'll go through what those are. First, I did not include any books that are already on my January TBR. As you know, my January TBR is filled with 5-star predictions that I definitely want to get to this year, and so I didn't decide to include it on this list because those are already basically books I decided to read already. And also, second rule is no books that I've already have plans to read, like for book club or other videos or specific things that are upcoming. Number 3 is no series continuations. I'm not including any second, third, fourth books in series that I'm in the middle of. This is strictly either first book in a series or standalone books. And lastly, no books that I am currently in the middle of or short story collections that I've already started are not on this list. So, with those rules, we're gonna start with my first 6 books, which are my anticipated releases. So these books are not out yet, or at least I don't think they are by the time this video goes out, but maybe 1 or 2 might already be out. I don't know. I didn't look up the dates, so I will put the dates on the screen for when they come out so you guys can see that. But we're starting off great. And the first book is We Do Not Part by Hong Kong. This book is her newest book that I think is releasing this month in January. This is the one that might be out already by the time this gets posted, so it doesn't matter. It's still a new release. But having only read The White Book by Hong Kong, there's another book by her on this list as well, which we'll get to. I definitely want to get through her works, all of her works, because she doesn't have too many yet, and they're all relatively short. Before it becomes like a way bigger undertaking, I definitely want to get all of the books that are already out off my list so I can anticipate all of her other upcoming works, as she is now a Nobel Prize winner, which is really exciting. I will read the little Goodreads summary for you, and a lot of these books I never actually read their summaries, so this will be new to me as well. One winter morning, Kyunga receives an urgent message from her friend Insun to visit her at a hospital in Seoul. Insun has injured herself in an accident, and she begs Kyunga to return to Jeju Island where she lives, to save her beloved pet, a white bird called Amma. A snowstorm hits the island when Kyunga arrives. She must reach Insun's house at all costs, but the icy wind and squalls slow her down as night begins to fall. She wonders if she will arrive in time to save the animal, or even survive the terrible cold that envelops her with every step. Lost in a world of snow, she doesn't yet suspect the vertiginous plunge into the darkness that awaits her at a friend's house. Blurring the boundaries between dream and reality, We Do Not Part powerfully illuminates a forgotten chapter in Korean history, buried for decades, bringing to light the lost voices of the past to save them from oblivion. Both a hymn to an enduring friendship and an argument for remembering, it is the story of profound love in the face of unspeakable violence and a celebration of life, however fragile it might be. Historical fiction, get some bit of Korean history on Jeju. I feel like this is kind of different than what she's written before, but also I've only read one book, so I can't be the judge of that really, but I'm very excited. Second book on this list is actually the first book I would have read from this author, and that is Witchcraft for Wayward Girls by Grady Hendrix. Kaylin has been wanting me to read the Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires by Grady Hendrix, because he really liked it. But I feel like this is a good start for me, because, you know, witchcraft, women, more up my alley. So I'll read you that synopsis as well. They call them wayward girls, loose girls, girls who grew up too fast, and they're sent to the Wellwood home in St. Augustine, Florida, where unwed mothers are hidden by their families to have their babies in secret, give them up for adoption, and most important of all, to forget any of it ever happened. 15-year-old Fern arrives at the home in the sweltering summer of 1970, pregnant, terrified, and alone. Under the watchful eye of the stern Miss Wellwood, she meets a dozen other girls in the same predicament. There's Rose, a hippie who insists she's going to find a way to keep her baby and escape to a commune, and Zinnia, a budding musician who knows she's going to go home and marry her baby's father. And Holly, a wisp of a girl barely 14, mute and pregnant by no one knows who. Everything the girls eat, every moment of their waking day, and everything they're allowed to talk about is strictly controlled by adults who claim they know what's best for them. Then Fern meets a librarian who gives her an occult book about witchcraft, and power is in the hands of the girls for the first time in their lives. but power can destroy as easily as it creates, and it's never given freely. There's always a price to be paid, and it's usually paid in blood. So this is definitely supposed to be horror, historical fiction as well. It's set in the 70s, a period piece, which I think will be great. And yeah, I'm very excited. I think this is right up my alley in terms of horror. And as you know, my goals were to read more horror. So I'm very curious to see if I like Grady Hendrix's writing, because if so, then there's a lot to get to for him. I'm gonna close one of my windows because I feel like I'm gonna get the shadows again. The next book comes as no surprise whatsoever, and that is Catabasis by R.F. Kuang. This one, I think the cover just got revealed, so exciting. I think it looks like a really cool optical illusion. Very curious what this is about. I have not read the synopsis yet, so let's read it together. This is said as Dante's Inferno, which maybe I should read, because I already mentioned it earlier. I feel like I should probably read that at some point. Dante's Inferno meets Susanna Clarke's Piranesi. She is notorious for being highly influenced by Susanna Clarke's writing. Babel was very much influenced by Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell, and I could tell by the way it was written. I actually read Babel before Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell, so I'm very curious how she gets influenced by Piranesi for this one. As you know, Susanna Clarke is one of my favorite authors, so this sounds right up my alley, but let's see what it's about. Alice Law has only ever had one goal: to become one of the brightest minds in the field of magic. She has sacrificed everything to make that a reality: her pride, her health, her love life, and most definitely her sanity. All to work with Professor Jacob Grimes at Cambridge, the greatest magician in the world. That is, until he dies in a magical accident that could possibly be her fault. Grimes is now in hell, and she's going in after him. Because his recommendation could hold her very future in his now incorporeal hands, and even death is not going to stop the pursuit of her dreams. Nor will the fact that her rival, Peter Murdoch, has come to the very same conclusion. With nothing but the tales of Orpheus and Dante to guide them, enough chalk to draw the pentagrams necessary for their spells, and the burning desire to make all the academic trauma mean anything, they set it off across hell to save a man they don't seem to like. But hell is not like the storybooks say. Magic isn't always the answer, and there's something in Alice and Peter's past that could forge them into the perfect allies or lead to their doom. Ooh, I love a Cambridge setting. First we get Oxford, and now I get Cambridge. I've seen Hadestown, which is, I think, the story of Orpheus, if I'm getting that correctly. So I'm all about this. This sounds interesting. I just hope we get the drama that, she always brings and the great writing, so I'm sure we will. The fourth book on my list is A Witch's Guide to Magical Innkeeping by Sangu Mandana. I've been waiting for this book to come out for so long. Like everyone says, the publication date has moved around so much. It was definitely supposed to come out last year. It just didn't. So hopefully it's ready to come out finally. She also wrote The Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches, which I also loved and read in 2023. So let's find out what this one's about. Sarah Swan used to be one of the most powerful witches in Britain. Then she resurrected her great Aunt Jasmine from the very recently dead, lost most of her magic, befriended a semi-villainous talking fox, and was exiled from her guild. Now she, slightly reluctantly and just a bit grumpily, helps her aunt run an enchanted inn in Lancashire, where she deals with her quirky guest shenanigans, tries to keep said talking fox in check, and longs for the future that seems lost to her. But then she finds out about an old spell that could hold the key to restoring her power. Enter Luke Larson, handsome and icy magical historian who arrives on a dark winter evening and might just know how to unlock the spell's secrets. Luke has absolutely no interest in getting involved in the madcap goings-on of the inn, and is definitely not about to let a certain bewitching innkeeper past his walls. So no one is more surprised than he is when he agrees to help Sarah with her spell. Worst, he might actually be thawing. Running an inn, reclaiming lost magic, and staying one step ahead of the Watchful Guild is a lot for anyone, but Sarah Swan is about to discover that she doesn't have to do it alone, and that the weird, wonderful family she's made might be the best magic of all. I'm hoping this one's even better, because, talking fox, of course, a magical historian, very similar to kind of the librarian vibes we got in the last book, and just seems cozy and found family, and I'm here for it, and I hope we get a little romance again. Number 5 is The Night and the Moth by Rachel Gillig. This one I am excited to read. I'm just very curious about it. I don't know what to expect. I'm hoping after The Shepherd King, she's kind of finessed her writing style a bit, which I think she has. I think she learned a lot from that, just based on like how different the first and second book were in terms of her writing. I thought the second book was a lot better and more concise with like the plot as well. So yeah, I'm very curious to see what this will be like. So let's read the synopsis for this one. Sybil Delling has spent 9 years dreaming of having no dreams at all. Like the other foundling girls who traded a decade of service for a home in the great cathedral, Sybil is a diviner. In her dreams, she receives visions from 6 unearthly figures known as omens. From them, she can predict terrible things before they occur, and lords and common folk alike travel across the kingdom of Trom's windswept moors to learn their futures by her dreams. Just as she and her sister diviners near the end of their service, a mysterious knight arrives at the cathedral. Rude, heretical, and devilishly handsome, the knight Roderick has no respect for Sybil's visions, but when Sybil's fellow diviners begin to vanish one by one, she has no choice but to seek his help in finding them, for the world outside the cathedral's cloisters is wrought with peril. Only the gods have the answers she is seeking, and as much as she'd rather avoid Roderick's dark eyes and sharp tongue, only a heretic can defeat a god. I hope we get the gothic vibes that she's so good at, and it's supposed to be, and we're getting a little mystery. So I just really hope it's done well. That's my one thing, but I definitely want to try it out. And I have no idea whether this is like part of a series or not, but this is definitely fantasy, romantasy focused. And I believe it's supposed to be adult rather than like new adult or young adult, so that's exciting. And last on my anticipated releases section of my 25 and 2025, we have The Unworthy by Augustina Basterica. I have only read Tender as the Flesh by her, but I'm very excited to read this because it sounds great. So I will read to you the synopsis of this as well. From her cell in a mysterious convent, a woman writes the story of her life in whatever she can find, discarded ink, dirt, and even her own blood. A lower member of the Sacred Sisterhood, deemed an unworthy, she dreams of ascending to the ranks of the enlightened at the center of the convent and of pleasing the foreboding superior sister. Outside the world is plagued by catastrophe, cities are submerged underwater, electricity and the internet are non-existent, the bands of survivors fight and forage in a cruel, barren landscape. Inside, the narrator is controlled, punished, but safe. But when a stranger makes her way past the convent halls, joining the ranks of the unworthy, she forces the narrator to consider her long-buried past, and what she may be overlooking about the enlightened. As the two women grow closer, the narrator is increasingly haunted by questions about her own past, the environmental future, and her present life inside the convent. How did she get to the Sacred Sisterhood? Why can't she remember her life before? And what really happens when a woman is chosen as one of the enlightened? A searing dystopian tale about climate crisis, ideological extremism, and the tidal pull of our most violent, exploitative instincts. This is another unforgettable novel from a master of feminist horror. Yeah, this is definitely horror and dystopian, and sounds right up my alley. She definitely has a lot of very well done commentary or expression on life and the world, and the way she explores it is always very interesting. So very excited for this one. And the next section is a book haul. So I recently went to Barnes & Noble with Kaylin. We got some Hanukkah money from family, so we went to go buy some books together. And this is kind of the only big book haul I'll do for a while, I think. I'm trying to get through the books that I already have because I have so many. So other than book boxes, I probably won't try to buy large amounts of books at the same time, but this is number 7 through 12. So book number 7 is Private Rights by Julia Armfield. I've talked about this book so many times, and I finally have it in my hands officially, even though it is hardback, but I couldn't wait for the paperback because the other book I have from her is a paperback, but it'll be fine. And I like the UK cover more than this, but I will make do. And I'm very excited for this. I've been wanting to read this for so long. I waited for it to come out, and then I just never got to it because, you know, end of year content's weird, but finally have it. So I'm gonna force myself to read it soon. So I'll read you the cover because I don't think I have read the cover for you yet, or the synopsis. It's been raining for a long time now, so long that the land has reshaped itself in old rituals and religions are creeping back into practice. Sister Isla, Irene, and Agnes have not spoken in some time when their father, an architect as cruel as he was revered, dies. His death offers an opportunity for the sisters to come together in a new way. In the grand glass house they grew up in, their father's most famous creation, the sisters sort through their secrets and memories he left behind, until their fragile bond is shattered by a revelation in his will. The sisters are more estranged than ever, and their lives spin out of control. Irene's relationship is straining at the seams, Isla's ex-wife keeps calling, and cynical Agnes is falling in love for the first time. But something even more sinister may be unfolding, something related to their mother's long ago disappearance and the strangers who have always seemed unusually interested in their sisters' lives. Soon it becomes clear that the sisters have been chosen for a very particular purpose, one with shattering implications for their family and their imperiled world. It's very intriguing, isn't it? So, number 7. Number 8 is Betty by Tiffany McDaniel. This one I've had my eye on for a very long time. I believe she is half Cherokee, so she's an Indigenous author, and I definitely want to read more from Indigenous authors. This one is basically about a girl's life story. I'm assuming it reads memoir-y or kind of, autobiographical, but I don't think it is. It's definitely fiction, so I'll read it back. So begins the story of Betty Carpenter. Born in a bathtub in 1954 to a white mother and a Cherokee father, Betty is the 6th of 8 siblings. The world they inhabit in the rural town of Breathe, Ohio, is one of poverty and violence, both from outside the family and devastatingly from within. But despite the hardships she faces, Betty is resilient. Her curiosity about the natural world, her fierce love for her sisters, and her father's brilliant stories are kindling for the fire of her own imagination. And in the face of all to which she bears witness, Betty discovers an escape. She begins to write. Inspired by generations of her family, Tiffany McDaniel sets out to free the past by delivering this heartbreaking yet magical story, a remarkable novel that establishes her as one of the most important voices in American fiction. Yeah, I know it's going to be tough to read, and I've heard it's just kind of devastating, but very, very interested in it. Number 9 is my second Hong Kong book on this list, and that is Human Acts. This one is also related to event in Korean history, I believe, or South Korean history specifically. So I'll read you back. In the midst of a violent student uprising in South Korea, a young boy named Dong-ho is shockingly killed. The story of this tragic episode unfolds in a sequence of interconnected chapters as the victims and the bereaved encounter suppression, denial, and the echoing agony of the massacre. From Dong-ho's best friend who meets his own fateful end, to an editor struggling against censorship, to a prisoner and a factory worker, each suffering from traumatic memories, and to Dong-ho's own grief-stricken mother, their collective heartbreak and acts of hope tell the tale of brutalized people in search of a voice. I have a feeling this will read kind of similar to There, like individual stories that are interconnected, but we'll see. I'm not entirely sure, but very intrigued by this one. Number 10 is also one that has been on my list for a very long time, and it is definitely one of those weird horror books, and that is Monstrilio by Gerardo Samano Cordova. This one I expect to be very uncomfy and weird to read, but I've only really heard great things about it. I haven't really heard anything bad about it, so I'm very intrigued, and I feel like it'll be right up my alley, so I will read you the back. After her son dies, Magos carves out a piece of his lung to save for herself. Acting on fierce maternal instinct and the dubious logic of an old folktale, she nurtures the lung until it gains sentience, growing into the carnivorous little monstrilio she keeps hidden within the walls of her decaying childhood home in Mexico City. But despite her best efforts to turn the monster she created into a man, Monstrilio's innate impulses threaten to destroy his fragile second chance at life. A meditation on grief, acceptance, and the monstrous side of love and loyalty, Gerardo Samano Cordova's ambitious debut spans the globe from Brooklyn to Berlin, offering a cathartic and precise portrait of being human. Yeah. Number 11 is a recommendation from Chelsea from Libraries and Lattes, and it is A Short Walk Through a Wide World. Yes, by Douglas Westerbeek. I think that's how you say it. Beek. This one, she described it like Secret Life of Walter Mitty vibes, and I absolutely loved that movie. I know it is also based off a short story, but I loved the movie. It was everything I wanted and made me want to go to Iceland, which I did, but not in the summer. So it was very icy in comparison to when he goes in the movie. But this book is also a period piece, and it just seems right up my alley. Paris, 1885. Aubrey Torvel, a spoiled and stubborn 9-year-old girl, comes across a wooden puzzle ball on her walk home from school. She tosses it over a fence only to find it in her backpack that evening. Days later, at the family dinner table, she starts to bleed to death. When medical treatment only makes her worse, she flees to the outskirts of the city where she realizes that it is the very act of movement that keeps her alive. So begins her lifelong journey around the world, constantly on the run from her disease, which won't allow her to stay anywhere more than a few days. There's more to that synopsis, but I'm going to close it for that because I feel like that is enough to make me want to read it, and I don't really want to spoil more of it. So very excited. And this one was at 50% off, so great score. And last on my book haul list, which is number 12, and that is Blood Over Bright Haven by Emma Wong. I am so excited to get to this book. This has been on my list for so long as well, and I just finished the first one. So stay tuned for my reviews on that one, but I am so excited to read something else from her. And yeah, it looks awesome. And I believe it's like a vampire-y dark academia, I think. So I'll read you the inside. For 20 years, Sayona has devoted every waking moment to the study of magic, fueled by a mad desire to achieve the impossible, to be the first woman ever admitted to the High Magistracy at the University of Magics and Industry. When Sayona finally passes the qualifying exam and becomes a High Mage, she finds her challenges have just begun. Her new colleagues are determined to make her feel unwelcome, and instead of a qualified lab assistant, they give her a janitor. What neither Sayona nor her peers realize is that her taciturn assistant was not always a janitor. 10 years ago, he was a nomadic hunter who lost his family on their perilous journey from the wild plains to the city, but now he sees the opportunity to understand the forces that decimated his tribe, drove him from his homeland, and keep the privilege and power. At first, mage and outsider have a fractious relationship, but working together they uncover an ancient secret that could change the course of magic forever, if it doesn't get them killed first. Sounds right up my alley. And yes, I don't think it's actually vampires, so I was wrong with that. But magic, dark academia, school thing. So usually I love these. And that wraps up my new book haul section. The next section and the majority of the books are books that I already own. Starting with Giovanni's Room by James Baldwin. This one is technically one that Kaylin owns, but you know, what's his is mine now, so it's mine. This one, I have only read The Fire Next Time by James Baldwin so far, and I loved every second of it, and even though it was an essay by him, basically. So I'm ready to read something fictional by him, and I know this is going to be very sad and depressing, but also beautiful, and I am ready for it. I think so. And I think I've already given you a synopsis of this when I went through my boyfriend's shelves. Well, my now fiance. So I'm not going to give you a synopsis for this, but I feel like most people know what this book is about. And for time's sake, you know. The next book on this list is The Last Unicorn by Peter S. Beagle. To no surprise, I was supposed to get to this at the end of last year, and I just didn't. And so I definitely want to make sure I read this year. And so this is on the list. I've also already given the synopsis out, so I'm not going to give you that again, but very excited to get into this cozy little fantasy. Book number 15 is Never Let Me Go by Kazuo Ishiguro. This one, I have seen the movie, but didn't realize it was this book because I had heard of this book so many times. I just didn't put two and two together, even though they're the same names. But I really want to read the book version of it, so I am very excited. I think I've also given you the synopsis of this, so I'm not going to again. But this one is kind of sci-fi dystopian, light sci-fi dystopian fiction based in Britain. Yes. Number 16 is James by Percival Everett. I've had this for a while. I picked it up at Costco randomly, not realizing it was a retelling of Huckleberry Finn from Jim's perspective, which I have not read Huckleberry Finn, and I don't really plan on it because I might as well read this one. And so I've heard nothing but great things about this book, so I'm very intrigued. But I'm also a little nervous about it because if it reads more classical, then it might take me a while to get into it, but I'm hoping that's not the case. So many cars making noise outside this window. I'm sorry if you hear it. I don't know why suddenly all the cars right now are driven by people that like need to be heard because usually cars aren't that loud right now. So, okay, moving on. Number 17 is The Glass Castle by Jeanette Walls, and this one I have had on my TBR so many times. It is a memoir, and I want to read a memoir. I don't think I've actually officially ever read a memoir, and this one has been on my TBR forever. I've had it for so long, and I just need to read it, and I don't know why I'm not doing it. So, yes. This is... I've probably given you the synopsis so many times, so make sure I get to this year. Someone convince me. Number 18 is Pet by Koike Emezi. This one has also been on my TBR many times, and it's so short. I don't know why I haven't gone to it yet. I know it'll be probably upsetting to me, but a lot of books are upsetting to me, and I cry easily. So I will get to this. I've also given the synopsis of this, so look it up if you want a refresh. The next book needs no synopsis, and that is Frankenstein by Mary Shelley. This one I picked up towards the end of last year, and I really wanted to read more classics, and I thought this would be a great start. And so I'm very, very interested to read this finally. But maybe I'll save it for like fall. I don't know. We'll see. Number 2021 is a book by one of my other favorite books authors, and that is In the Lake of the Woods by Tim O'Brien. I'm very curious what I'll think of another book of his. This one is more like mystery thriller, I think. And so that is kind of intriguing to me because the other book I read is The Things They Carried, and that is definitely Vietnam War focused and kind of reads autobiographical. So very curious to see if I'll like this and want to pick up more of his books because, I don't know, I never thought about it until now. The back is short, so I'll read it. When long hidden secrets about his past come to light, John Wade, a Vietnam veteran and recent candidate for the U.S. Senate, retreats with his wife Kathy to a lakeside cabin in northern Minnesota. Within days of their arrival, Kathy mysteriously vanishes into the watery wilderness. As the search is begun, several explanations, all of them disturbing, rise to the surface in this unforgettable story about the vagaries of memory, love, and deception. I'm curious what happens to Kathy. Number 22 is also one I've had for a very long time, and this is actually the first book I ever got in one of the special edition book boxes, and that is The Unmaking of June Farrow by Adrienne Young. The only other Adrienne Young book I've read is The Sky in the Deep, which I think is one of her YA books from a long time ago. It's a Viking book. It's very good. Highly recommend. This one is very different. I believe she's like a gardener, or like her family deals with flowers a lot. I don't even really remember. I don't really want to read the whole thing because it's long and this video's taking forever. But I think there's like a slight romance. There's like a mystery about a door, clearly. And so yeah, there's the back. So yeah, want to finally read this because I've had it forever. And then lastly, in this section of the books that I own, I want to read The 100,000 Kingdoms by N.K. Jemisin. I loved her Broken Earth series, and I want to read the Inheritance series as well because I want to read more from her, and I don't know if her urban fantasy work will suit me because I haven't done well with urban fantasy in the past. So I'm gonna start here, and I know this was before Broken Earth, but I think I'll really like it, so I'm excited to read it. But you know, another trilogy, so I gotta finish other things before I start this, but I want to at least start it this year. And the last two are technically also books I already own, but they're categorized as rereads. So there's two rereads I want to do this year. The first one being Fahrenheit 451 by Ray Bradbury. This one I read in high school when I didn't actually enjoy reading, and I don't know if I actually read the whole thing. I probably spark noted most of it. So I want to finally actually read it because I feel like I should, and it's short and it's a lot of people's favorite, and yeah, I've heard that the writing's not the greatest, so we'll see if I can get through it. But yeah, I definitely want to finally do this, and I found this one at a used bookstore, so it's cool. And then last but not least, number 25, which I think is one of the ones I'm most excited for, even though it is a reread, and that is Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen. This one I also read in high school, but I think I read actually the majority of it rather than spark noted it. I have annotations even in here. This is my actual high school version, so I'm very excited. I am a big Pride and Prejudice fan, like even the movies, like my comfort movie, the mini series. I've watched everything. I've read this. I wrote a creative essay on a part of this book for a class, and I was like one of the favorite things I've ever written. So I am very excited to reread this, and I want to do this sooner rather than later because my 30th birthday is coming up, and I planned it as a kind of, the theme will be gothic, because I love gothic stuff. But the dress code is, well, it's a costume party, is dress as one of your favorite book characters or TV movie characters adapted from a book. So I am going as Elizabeth Bennet, and Kaylin will be Mr. Darcy, my dream. So hopefully, this is like very early, you know, my birthday's in March, so this is the plan now. Invites have been sent out so people can plan their costumes, but I just actually ordered my dress, so I need to go try it on right after this to make sure it fits. But I am so very excited to read this, and I'm very glad we're ending on this note. And oh my god, so that technically wasn't 25. I missed one in the books I own category. So last but not least is Eileen by Ottessa Moshfegh. So this one is a weird book. I really enjoyed her writing for my year of rest and relaxation. I'm not going to read you the synopsis because I've already talked about it multiple times, but very intrigued by something else she's written because I want to get through her catalog if I really like this one as well, because there's some really weird ones that are on the list that I'm aware of and I want to get to. But I'll start with this one, which I think is like not as weird as her weirdest books. I gotta stop saying weird now, but yes, Eileen is on the books I own list. So that is actually 25. Sorry about that. So as you can see, 25 books doesn't sound like a lot based on me reading 89 books last year, but it is a lot because a lot of books come out, a lot of things change, my taste changes. So we'll see at the end of the year what this list actually looks to be and what I've read. But if you are interested in buddy reading any of these, if you're also interested in any of these, like let me know what your top 25 or just top 1 or 2 books you want to get to, your anticipated releases. I do plan on doing another video on anticipated releases, but focused on specific releases or types of books rather than all of the anticipated releases for the year, because I feel like I'm seeing a lot of same books on same lists, so I'm trying to get the weird ones and the darker ones out there. So stay tuned for that. And I am excited to get going, and I'm already having a pretty good reading month for January, so that's great. So yes, please let me know if you want to read any of these with me, or if you're interested, or your thoughts, if you've read any of these, if you think I'm crazy for wanting to read some of these, or think it's the best decision of my life. I'm very ready to hear about it. So thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a great day. Bye.